Never late. Never away novel audiobook. Chapter 2 to Chapter 6. 1 hour later, Vivian walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau with the red marriage certificate clutched in her hands. She felt as though she was floating on air, as if everything had been nothing but a dream. Never had she ever thought that she would one day suddenly marry a man that she had only met by chance. Perhaps this is fate. Lowering her eyes, she gazed at the photo of them sitting side by side. The man's expression was blank, while hers evidently displayed her unease and reservations. Beneath that photo were both of their names. How absurd is it that I've only just come to learn of my new husband's name from a marriage certificate. Of all things, Finnick Norton, a simple but fitting name for a man like him. Vivian William, the man, Finnick, was also staring at his marriage certificate. He pronounced her name slowly, the low timbre of his voice causing it to roll off his tongue smoothly. The way he uttered it sent shivers running down her spine. She was still reeling from her change in marital status when a hand suddenly appeared right before her. A card was pinched between its two fingers. Miss William, I am aware that having a wedding and getting a wedding ring are some of the most anticipated events for a woman. Unfortunately, I am sorry to say that I don't have the time to deal with all that. If you'd really like a ring, you can choose one yourself. Tilting her head backwards, Vivian met Finnick's unreadable gaze. There's no need for that. She hurriedly waved her hands in refusal at him. I don't care for such formalities. She was long past the age where she would care for such romantic gestures. More importantly, she did not want to feel like she had owed him anything, even though he was lawfully her husband. At the very least, get a ring. With that said, he grabbed her wrist, as he stuffed his card into her hand. The moment their hands brushed against each other, the slight difference in their temperature sent a jolt rushing through Vivian. She was rather surprised by his warmth. Fine then, since they were newlyweds, so to speak, she did not want to get into an argument with him over his good intentions. Hence, she accepted the card and kept it aside in her bag. I have a meeting in the afternoon, so I'll be leaving first. You'll have to find your own transport. His tone of voice was as neutral as ever. Okay. She had not held any hope that he would actually treat her like a real wife, someone who he would love and spoil. That was why she was not disappointed at all that he was leaving her there. Abruptly remembering something, he spoke up again. By the way, I'll send you my home address later today. Just move in when it's convenient for you. They had exchanged their phone numbers earlier when they were getting their marriage certificates. I am not in any hurry, she quickly responded. Although it made sense that they would need to stay together after marrying, the truth was that she was simply not prepared to live under the same roof as a stranger just yet. Perhaps the rejection in her tone was too obvious, as Finnick soon lifted his head to glance at her. Vivian flushed a little, in embarrassment. However, he did not respond to that. All he did was push a button on his wheelchair to turn it in another direction. If there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave now. All right. She waited for him to get into a black car before she soon took to depart as well. After that, she immediately called her company's human resource department. She told them that she was going to be registered in Sunshine City very soon. She heaved a deep sigh of relief once it was confirmed that they would apply for the local health insurance for both her and her family. While getting married to Dave was quite a rash decision on her part, at the very least, she had finally managed to resolve the matter that had been plaguing her with worry for a while now. At last, she would not need to agonize over her mother's medical bills. Upon arriving at Glamour magazine, her workplace, Vivian found that the time for their afternoon interview had yet to arrive. Using her remaining free time, she headed over to the shopping mall next door to buy a pair of wedding rings with the card that Finnick had given her. Thereafter, she returned to her desk and sat down, planning on going through the information on this afternoon's interview one last time. Just then, Sarah slid her office chair over. Her eyes were gleaming as she asked, "Vivian, what's up with the ring?" "Quite the observant one, aren't you?" Vivian had no intention of hiding anything. After all, the Human Resource Department already knew that she had transferred her household register. Everyone in the company would soon come to know of her change in marital status. "I've recently gotten married." "Congratulations, Vivian." Sarah scrutinized the ring, commenting, "Did your husband gift you this? It's not a very big diamond, is it? How much did it cost?" "A little over 1,000. Vivian did not know anything about Finnick's financial background, so she had chosen a pair of the cheapest and simplest rings that she could find. Sarah's brows furrowed and she stated with a solemn expression on her face, "Vivian, that simply won't do at all. A wedding ring is a symbol of your marriage. How dependable can a man be if he want to even buy you a better ring?" "It's fine. He is just doing the best that he can," Vivian answered. Noting the sympathetic look in the other woman's eyes, she realized that Sarah probably thought that her new husband was not very well off. "That's enough. Let us not talk about this anymore." She swiftly changed the subject, unwilling to linger on it any longer. "Are you ready for the interview later?" "Ha ha ha. Most definitely." Vivian's distraction tactic had been successful, as Sarah soon gestured towards her attire. "Vivian, what do you think? Am I beautiful?" It was only then Vivian noticed that her colleague was dressed in a pink and white skirt dress set. Her hair had also been styled carefully. "You look amazing," Vivian complimented. Tickled pink by her words of praise, Sarah's eyes soon lit up in delight. "Then, do you suppose that I'll have a chance with the wealthy bachelor president of Finnick Group?" Vivian blinked in surprise, as an understanding dawned upon her as to why Sarah had gone through so much trouble to doll herself up. The person that they would be interviewing later this afternoon was the president of Finnick Group. In Sunshine City, Finnick Group was akin to that of a legend. 3 years ago, the company suddenly popped up out of nowhere. Rapidly, it managed to make a name for itself in the finance industry, using extremely aggressive methods. Within the next 3 years, it managed to become one of the financial magnates of Sunshine City, as it was on par with the top 3 families in the city. Yet, what had caught everyone's attention more was the president of the company. Even now, nobody knew what his name was, or how he looked like. His entire identity was a mystery, a fact that only added more to his allure. There was no better example to use than Sarah, who specifically took time to dress up when she found out they were going to interview the elusive president. Amusement glinted in Vivian's eyes as she teased, "Sarah, are you sure that you do want to leave such a good impression on him? Aren't you worried that the president might be a bald old man?" "PFFT. I don't believe that." Sarah stomped her foot in annoyance. "Rumor has it that he is supposed to be really young." In contrast to Sarah's hopeful expression, Jenny was entirely serious as she stated, "This interview is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so we need to be fully prepared for it. This is the first time that the president actually accepted a media interview. Our sales will definitely reach an all-time high if we manage to get a photo of him." Vivian nodded in understanding. It was true that the president of Finnick Group had never once accepted an interview before. When Glamour magazine first sent an invite over, he had initially refused. As per usual, inexplicably, a call came in yesterday, saying that he had agreed to it. Needless to say, the sudden good news had shocked the chief editors. Upon running through the contents of the interview one last time, Vivian, Sarah, and Jenny headed over to Finnick Group with a photographer. Finnick Group was located in the financial district of Sunshine City. They greeted the receptionist on the first floor, stating the reason for their visit. Then, they took the elevator all the way up to the top floor. "Are you from Glamour magazine?" The secretary came over to welcome them the moment they stepped out of the elevator. "Mr. Norton is already waiting inside for you." With that said, she led them into the president's office. Vivian paused slightly when she heard the secretary's words. "Mr. Norton, who would have thought that the president of Finnick Group would share the same surname as my new husband?" Right before they entered, the nervous Sarah tugged on Vivian's sleeve, whispering, "Is my hair all right? Is it messy? Oh, it better not be messed up." Snickering softly, Vivian murmured in return, "You're fine. Not a single hair is out of place. It's." At that moment, she happened to glance into the office as she spoke. Upon spotting the figure by the windows, she stiffened in surprise and trailed off. All thoughts about reassuring Sarah soon vanished. Just then, Sarah's gaze landed on the man as well. Soon enough, she forgot all about her appearance. The shock was evident in her voice as she muttered, "Oh my God, the president of Finnick Group. He is actually sitting in a wheelchair." Before Vivian could say anything, the wheelchair slowly whirled around to face them. Sarah gasped, "Whoa, he is so handsome. He is more handsome than a celebrity." The fact that he was sitting in a wheelchair was completely overshadowed by his attractiveness. Hence, Sarah could not contain her odd whispers. Vivian did not hear a single word that she had uttered. Her attention was focused on the man too, but for entirely different reasons than her colleague. At that moment, her brain felt as though it had stopped working, as she stared at him, utterly dumbfounded. The rays of light pouring in from the window had cast the sharp angles of his face in the shadows, while his dark orbs were as cold as ever. It was Finnick. The president of Finnick Group is Finnick. The revelation stunned Vivian. Before she could react, Finnick shot them a small smile. "You are from Glamour magazine, right? Please take a seat." "Vivian, what are you still standing around for?" The reminder from Sarah snapped Vivian out of her daze, as she soon followed them to the couch. Finnick glided over and stopped in front of them. Sarah's face was full of excitement as she asked, "Mr. Norton, may we begin?" "Sure." Finnick's expression was rather placid. Up till now, he had not even given Vivian a second glance. It was almost like they were complete strangers. His distant attitude had even caused Vivian to wonder if this man was just a random person who had a striking resemblance to her new husband. "Well, Mr. Norton, since you've been very mysterious so far, everyone is dying to know what your full name is." Blushing a bright red, Sarah began the interview. "Do you mind telling us your name?" "Finnick Norton," he replied succinctly, the moment the words left his thin lips. Vivian's hopes were dashed. "Finnick Norton. He really is my new husband." "Finnick Norton. What a pleasant name," Jenny flattered with a smile. "Next, we would like to ask you a series of questions." With that, Jenny turned to shoot Vivian a pointed look. Upon noticing that Vivian was still staring at Finnick stupidly, she surreptitiously pinched the daydreaming woman. "Ouch!" Vivian exclaimed in pain as she returned to her senses. Before coming here, they had all agreed that Vivian would do the interview, while Sarah and Jenny jotted down the notes. Faced with Jenny's reproving glare, Vivian quickly calmed her raging emotions as she put on a professional air. "Mr. Norton, are you a local of Sunshine City?" "I guess you could say that I am half a local." In stark contrast to Vivian's earlier panic, Finnick was as cool as a cucumber. "I was born here but I'd left for a nation when I was really young." At his words, Vivian suddenly felt like she had wanted to burst out in laughter. The man sitting across from her was supposed to be her husband, yet she knew absolutely nothing about him. However, she was working now, so she pushed aside her random thoughts. She continued the interview, going down the list of questions that they had prepared beforehand. The interview went on smoothly after that. Finnick was rather cooperative, albeit a little cold. Still, he was nothing like the unreasonable and unkind man that the rumors said he was. Getting into the flow of things, Vivian temporarily forgot that she was actually interviewing her husband. However, when her eyes landed on the next question, her words got stuck in her throat. An awkward silence descended upon the office. "Vivian, what are you doing?" Sarah nudged her. She plastered an apologetic smile on her face. "My apologies, Mr. Norton. This next question is rather personal, and I am sure that a lot of our female readers will be interested in your answer." Squashing aside the strange feeling that was burning in her chest, Vivian forced herself to ask, "Are you single, Mr. Norton?" Vivian could have bitten off her tongue at the stupid question that had escaped her lips. Ugh, if only Sarah and Jenny weren't here right now. I wouldn't have to ask this question that I already know the answer to. Nervous, she raised her head to glance into Finnick's eyes. She could have sworn that she had glimpsed a slight hint of amusement flashing through his emotionless orbs. However, it was gone as fast as it had come, leaving her to wonder if she had merely imagined it. He opened his mouth and drawled, "Well, what do you think, miss?" Vivian's heart skipped a beat at his response. "What do I think? I don't even need to think about it." Despite her inner thoughts, she still managed to quirk her lips up in a small grin. "Let me guess. A man with such outstanding achievements as yourself. I am certain that you're already married. Am I right, Mr. Norton?" Thereafter, she avoided his gaze, as guilt crept upon her. In the next instant, she berated herself for feeling so. Why should I feel guilty? He is the one who had concealed his real identity from me. He kept pretending that he didn't know me. I am not in the wrong here. Across from her, Finnick took note of the minor changes in her expressions, as her conflicting emotions played out all over her face. Almost imperceptibly, his lips twitched upwards. Even before this interview, he already knew that she would be the one who would be interviewing him. In all actuality, it was probably more accurate to say that he had only agreed to it because he found out that she worked at Glamour magazine. She thought that today was the first time that they had met. In truth, he had seen her 3 days ago when she was on a blind date. At that time, he was quite certain that he had never seen her before. Yet, somehow, she seemed incredibly familiar to him. Thus, he instructed his men to investigate her. It was pure coincidence that he had met her again this morning, at the Civil Affairs Bureau. The man whom she was supposed to marry had not shown up. He had even called to humiliate her. Recalling the information that his men had found out, he had approached her and suggested that they marry each other instead. He had tossed the earlier question to her to answer because he wanted to tease her. He had not expected that she would be so nervous and shy about it. It did not match what he had known of her past at all. The serene look on his face was unchanging as he uttered, "Yes, I am already married. It only happened in the past few days actually." As he said that, his eyes flicked over to Vivian, causing her heart to pound faster. Before she could respond, Sarah let out an exaggerated cry of dismay. "Mr. Norton, you're already married. Oh, all our female readers are going to be heartbroken." Sarah sighed mournfully before she perked up and prodded, "I wonder what sort of woman Mr. Norton's wife is. Is she a daughter from one of the influential families?" "Sarah." Vivian tugged at the nosy woman's arm. "That's certainly not on the list of questions that we had prepared. It's way too personal and it's rather rude too." Thankfully, Finnick did not get upset. He smiled blandly as he chose to remain silent. "All right. That's enough of asking Mr. Norton about his private life. Let us move on to the questions related to the company." Not wanting to linger on the topic of marriage for too long, Vivian hurriedly brought the interview back on track. The next few questions were straight to the point, as they were entirely focused on his job. At long last, the interview ended on a safe note. I am very happy to have received this interview from Glamour magazine. Finnick shook each of their hands after the session had ended. When it was Vivian's turn, he paused for a second, his gaze fixed on the ring that she was wearing. His lips curled up into a smirk. What a beautiful ring! Vivian's cheeks felt warm, as a blush bloomed upon her face. She snatched her hand back and followed the others out of the office. The tension running through her only diminished once they had exited. Beside her, Sarah shrieked in joy. Oh my God! I actually shook hands with the president of Finnick Group. I am not going to wash my hand for a week. Exasperated, Vivian was about to chastise the other woman, when she saw Finnick's secretary walking towards them. There were several small but intricate boxes in her hands. Hello. This is a small token of appreciation from our president to each of you. Please accept it. Accepting one of the boxes, Sarah was increasingly ecstatic. Oh wow. We'd even received a gift too. How thoughtful of Mr. Norton. She eagerly opened the box, revealing a Chanel silk scarf inside. Damn, it's not surprising that he is the president. His generosity is really something. She gushed. Look, we each have a different color too. Vivian, hurry up and open yours. I want to see what color yours is. Vivian did not wish to open the box, but Sarah continued to wheedle her relentlessly. Unable to bear it any longer, she lifted the lid. Upon catching a glimpse of what was inside, her face fell. She quickly slammed the lid shut, before the others could see what it was. It's nothing. Vivian stammered out, hiding the box behind her back. She added, it's the same color as yours. I am having a terrible stomachache. I need to rush to the bathroom. She did not wait for a response as she fled for the nearest bathroom. As soon as she was in the privacy of the cubicle, she perched on the toilet seat lid and carefully lifted the lid of the box once again. Unlike Sarah and the others' silk scarves, there was a bunch of keys in her box instead. She was still staring at it in dumbfounded shock when she received a message. Finnick had sent her his home address, which revealed that he was living in the most expensive villa neighborhood in Sunshine City. His address and a bunch of keys. He was serious about me moving in to live with him. I guess it's not wrong of him to think as such. After all, we are lawfully wedded to one another. It's normal for us to live together. Soon after that, she left the bathroom and headed back to the magazine company with Sarah and the rest. They had managed to get several good shots of Finnick during this interview. However, they did not dare to publish his photo without his consent. Hence, the chief editor called to ask Finnick if they were allowed to do so. The chief editor had only done this because he had wanted to try his luck. He did not really expect a positive response. After all, the president of Finnick Group had always been hiding in the shadows. Agreeing to an interview was already a huge surprise on his end. To the utter amazement of everyone, Finnick had actually agreed. Immediately, the entire magazine company was buzzing with chatter. Damn, the president of Finnick Group is allowing us to publish his photo. Looks like we're going to be famous. Quick, show us his photo. Is he really as handsome as Sarah claims? Previously, Vivian and the others had not dared to show Finnick's photos without his consent. Now that he had given them permission to use his photos, they took them out for public viewing. All the women in the magazine company squealed and shrieked when they saw his photos. Hot damn! He is so gorgeous. Sarah, the way that you described him doesn't do him justice at all. Yeah, none of the celebrities can compare to him. None at all. Hey, why is Mr. Norton's chair so weird? It kinda looks like a wheelchair. Someone had finally noticed the wheelchair that Finnick was sitting in, as a hush soon descended upon them. Sarah spoke up loudly. Yeah, Mr. Norton is wheelchair bound. But so what? He is handsome and filthy rich. To me, that still makes him Prince Charming. All the other women fervently agreed, which sent jealousy shooting through their male colleagues. The men scoffed and made disparaging comments. Who cares if he is rich and handsome? Do you know that nearly 80% of men in wheelchairs can't perform anymore? That is right. Didn't you say that he was already married? His poor wife is probably going to have to remain celibate for the rest of her life. Cough, cough, cough. Vivian, who had been quietly listening to their chatter while drinking water, very nearly spat the liquid out. As it was, she choked and started to cough violently. One of her colleagues moved over to pat her back. Vivian, what's wrong with you? It seems as though Mr. Norton's charm is just too much for our perpetually calm Vivian too. Huh? Yeah, exactly. Sarah piped up. You guys should have seen her just now at the interview. She was so nervous. Grimacing slightly, Vivian protested. Hey, don't speak of such lies. I wasn't the one swooning over him like a fangirl. How could I not? Sarah cradled her cheeks while admiration shone in her eyes. He is simply too perfect. If it weren't for his crippled legs, he would be the stereotypical president male-led, like in all those romance novels. It was clear that the women were completely ignoring their male colleagues' scornful remarks. For the next few days, the magazine company was busy, working on the article about Finnick. Everyone seemed to be in high spirits as they threw themselves into their work with newfound gusto. At long last, it was the weekend. Vivian was completely burned out from the hectic week. Nonetheless, she was still unable to rest, to her utter misfortune. First, she took the time to visit her mother in the hospital. After that, she went back home to pack her belongings, in preparation for moving into Finnick's house. She was worried about dragging this on any longer. She did not want him to think she was being insincere in the relationship of theirs. As she had expected, Finnick's villa was massive, with a slight hint of a mid-century design in its architecture. He did not have a lot of servants in his villa, only an old couple named Liam and Molly. Liam helped Vivian in carrying her luggage to the master bedroom on the second floor. The interior was a simplistic but modern design. Opening the closet, she noted that half of it was filled with men's clothing, while the other half was empty. Understanding dawned upon her. She would be sleeping in the same room as Finnick. Not finding anything wrong with that, she put her own belongings in, neatly filling up the closet. By the time she had finished unpacking, it was already nighttime. Finnick was still not yet home though. Her dinner was a plate of spaghetti, cooked by Molly. When she was done, she returned to the master bedroom to take a shower. Done with her shower, she reached out for a towel to dry herself, only to realize that she had forgotten to bring one in with her. Cursing herself for being so careless, she warred with herself for several long moments. In the end, she carefully cracked open the bathroom door and peeked out. Seeing that there was no one in the room, Vivian stepped outside fully and sprinted for the closet. Water dripped down her wet body, landing on the floor. Just as she was rummaging through the closet for a towel, she heard a loud click from behind her. She jumped a little in shock, as she whirled around to see Finnick entering the room in his wheelchair. The man was visibly astounded to see her as well, evidently not expecting his new wife to be so bold as to welcome him home in such a provoking manner. Vivian froze to the spot, as her mind went blank. When her brain kicked into gear again, she let out a shrill scream as she dashed towards the bathroom. Unfortunately for her, the floor was slippery from the water that she had shed. On her trek across the room, her feet slid out from beneath her and she fell forward. "Watch out!" Finnick's expression scrunched up, as he swiftly moved his wheelchair over to catch her. Thankfully, he got there in time, so she tumbled right into his lap. As his fingers brushed against her soft and wet body, he stilled in surprise. Bowing his head, He took in the 2 spots of bright red on her cheeks. Although Vivian was not a typical world-class beauty, her features were delicate and fine. She was the sort of woman that would appear increasingly beautiful the more one had looked at her. This moment was one that was as such. Her face was free of all makeup, while her damp hair was tucked behind her ears. Beads of water trickled down her silky strands, trailing down past her prominent collarbones and along the curves of her petite figure. Finnick swallowed, his throat suddenly feeling as dry as parchment, as his eyes darkened considerably. Finally righting herself, Vivian lifted her head and met the man's heated gaze. She was no innocent child. She knew what the look in his eyes had meant. Oh no. Sorry. She instantly tried to get back on her feet. While scrambling to stand, her hands landed on Finnick's legs as she paused briefly. Thanks for listening to the Bravonovel audiobook. Welcome to download the Bravonovel app. Read the novel never late, never away online and get the latest updates. Please see the video introduction for the novel details page and app download address.